Galaxy's Edge. Oh, looks like I got the camera aiming God knows where. Okay. This is a game which the word theme really applies to. Theme in the sense of a Simpsons themed chess game or Star Wars themed Monopoly. Which is to say the theme has nothing to do with the game in any particular sort of way. There is, some... It's more like a standard chess set in the sense that, oh yeah, I've got some medieval-looking things, knights and little castles and stuff like that. In this, you have your spaceships and you have your colonization and all that. And that all kind of makes some vague sort of sense. But for the most part, this is an abstract game. A game with a theme applied to it, as opposed to what I generally like, which is games with subject matter. That's not something worth holding against it necessarily, except insofar as, the picture and everything. I don't know. I thought we got beyond that with the coming of the 80s, where we wouldn't be putting out games that aren't really about anything, that are just abstracts, but we try to pretend they're about something. Obviously, every game has an abstract underneath it, but this one doesn't really seem to relate to any sort of reality that you could imagine. I was aware of that, though, when I picked it up, and I think anybody who is looking at reviews, etc., except when they start seeing things, there are geeks lists that say things like, epic space conquest in less than an hour. And it immediately makes you think, oh, epic space conquest, Twilight Imperium, or something like that. A game which I have my gripes about, but it is certainly about something, okay? This ain't. This deserves maybe the title Space-Themed Abstract. Okay. What do we have within this? The component, I was aware, like I said, that it was not going to be a very, very interesting simulation of anything, nor even something that reaches towards its subject matter. It was essentially an abstract game that played out with some sort of spacey type ideas. And in fact, the cards actually add a little bit to it in terms of sounding like they're about something. But beyond that, I wanted to get it because it looked like it had some interesting mechanisms, in particular the base mechanism. And we'll get to that in a moment, but I want to talk a little about components. The first thing, and most impressive, is this armored box. This thing is just, it's amazing. I can't believe that they did this out of cardboard. If I hit myself with this, I'll bleed. Very, very well-made hexes. Reasonably discernible. These guys, the card stock on these, very thick stock on everything. Very nicely made components. The cards themselves are fine. The little wooden die, well, I don't like wooden dice, and unfortunately, this one is a special die for the game. So you can't just replace it with a regular six-sider. You'd have to make your own little stickers for it. The wooden pieces, again, functional. There's one big grump. Let's say two, but this one exemplifies it. These bands that prevent you from moving somewhere. If you saw in the playthrough, they're constantly covering everything up, and you can't see what the hell's going on. The big spaceship is kind of that way, too. Now, I understand. You want these things to jump out at you. The bands would have been nicer to make them kind of out of a translucent plastic, maybe, so you could see what's underneath them. Maybe a clear plastic with a trimmed border. The spaceship, harder to deal with. Something that stands up is fine, though. These would work. You could stand these up, and that would probably work better. I tended to put them how it's easier to place them, and they covered some stuff up, but they weren't anywhere near the problem the bands are. And maybe placing the bands on their side would work too. The rulebook itself is incredibly small. It's a simple game. And very clear. So no gripes there. I'm hoping I have enough room for all this plastic because I've got these humongous bags. It has nothing to do with the game. It has to do with me being cheap and not wanting to use my more usable bags. So I'm using these bigger ones to fill things out. Okay. I think that'll work. With the armored box, I'll help hold it down. What is really cool about this game? You're going for a number of different things at once. You're going for the point values on the hexes. That's your primary way of getting score. You'll see that we get over here my final score. Everybody scored a lot more in base points than they did from their bonus points. But you're also going for control of these special loyalty pledges is what they're called. Basically, if you've got colonies in enough places, you end up getting that loyalty pledge, and there's extra bonus points that go with that, but you've got to do something for those bonus points. So you got these layer upon layer of things you have to do. You have to collect your points, you have to decide on what loyalty pledges and what bonuses you want to go for, maintain control of that, and also get, and it's often at odds with what you're trying to do with the systems that the pledges actually come from, is get bonuses off those pledges. So for example, the hive planets tend to be, or hive systems tend to not have a lot of planets on them. So you can't just, colonize the hive systems and get lots of score off of that, because that's their bonuses. Lots of colonies on the same system. Likewise, the humans, I think their systems tend to be kind of sparse as well, and they get bonuses off of systems which you or sectors which you share colonies with other players. So you want more systems in them, more planets, and then the crystallines don't have a lot of ones in their systems, and their bonus goes towards taking planets with a single point value. The randomized setup means that you're going to be facing a different game each time. I'm not sure how much tactically, I'm not sure how much that matters, but it certainly doesn't hurt anything to scramble things up there. It's not like there's enough story here that you're breaking it by randomizing the setup at all. Very, very simple rolls. You move and you build something. Then you get, if you build something, you get to roll the die, and then you check this military control roll. The military control roll, with its, if I'm the only person with a level 1 base, I get it. But if somebody ties me for that, then the level 2 bases get it, and if those are tied as well, then the level 3 bases get it. That's an interesting mechanism with a lot of nuances in how it can be played, I think. You could slap down a higher level base right away, and because the level 1s are tied, nobody has any, you succeed in taking something. Of course, that's expensive in terms of triangles, and you're limited by countermix, but we didn't come anywhere near running out of triangles. Even in the 2-player game that I played, that seems almost impossible. There are a lot of those. There aren't a lot of colonies. There are enough that I think anything but the 2-player game, though, has nobody's going to run out of them. In the 2-player game, and it's not supposed to be played in 2, by the way, in the 2-player game that I played with my wife, and that's on our special list on the Geek, not only did I ran out of colonies, and she was able to run the table on the remaining locations because of it. It definitely causes some problems. It may make sense if you're going to try to play this 2-player, which again, it's not supposed to be played 2-player, to use a dual counter mix for that. It also makes sense not to, though. there's something interesting about having to be careful about your choices of where you're going to lay your initial planets. But you may have to make some additional rules as to what to do if someone, say, gets a military conquest and they don't have a piece free to use. All right. What doesn't work so well here? I mean, there's these wonderfully rich decisions going on. But what doesn't work is there's these wonderfully rich decisions going on. Look, if you've watched a few of my videos, you know that I despise games where I have to count what everybody's doing and I have to be aware all over the board to make my decision of what I'm going to play. And this is a game where that's the case. Some people like that kind of thing. Some people like to balance so many decisions. For me, the only way this would be playable is on a clock in terms of pleasantry. Or two-player. Now, I have to say, I enjoyed it as a two-player abstract strategy game. I thought it was kind of cool. There was a much more limited amount of stuff I had to keep track of in a two-player game. It's a simpler game, less layers, but still very interesting. And the random die throws enough randomness in that this is no pure strategy game, however you look at it. You can't be sure whether or not there's going to be a ban in the place you just did something. You can't be sure when or if you're going to ever get to play your cards. And there's the randomness of the cards themselves as well, which give you different capabilities. Not ones that you can really count on because you're awaiting the die for them, but still. So there's enough to shake this up that I don't think it would ever get stale playing a two-player or any number of players. The thing that bugs me about it is the amount of thinking that goes behind each of these decisions is enough to throw me into an analysis paralysis situation. Now, I'm prone to that in games where I have to do a lot of counting and be aware of a lot. And you could say, well, geez, man, don't you play some pretty complex games? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Let's take 18XX as the example against that I'd align this with. The complexity of a decision in 18XX is almost always, in terms of its long-term events and effects, too hard for me to calculate. And that is absolutely clear to me. This game, it's absolutely clear that I can calculate. So, I'll try. I don't feel like I'm trying to win unless I'm making those calculations. Now right there, you don't have analysis paralysis yet. But it's at the limit of what I can kind of pay attention to, at least when I'm playing 4 powers at once. Maybe as my own player, I wouldn't have that same annoyance. But my turns would still take a long time because I would want to figure out every single thing that I could about where I go. You put this game on a timer, and you're stripping away a lot of that thought, right? Well, maybe, maybe not. If you're playing a 4-player game and you can think about your turn for 3 other players' turns, and then you've got, like, I don't know, 2 minutes to get your turn done, well, that's probably not unreasonable. Of course, everybody's going to be kind of focusing intently on the game and doing all their counting, and there's not going to be any time to sit back and kind of enjoy the social aspect of gaming in that case. Anyhow, that's my biggest slam on this game, is that it doesn't suit my style of play at all. However, I still think that this is a pretty damn cool multiplayer abstract strategy game that I think would appeal to people who don't have my particular issues, perhaps. I would never have guessed, though, from playing this solitaire. It's very seldom that I don't understand a game almost completely by playing it solitaire, even just once. And by understand completely, I mean understand completely what things appeal to me and what doesn't. There aren't a lot of secrets in that after I play a game, for me. I may not know the best strategy. And that's not a big thing. So if there's some kick-ass perfect strategy to a game, tell you the truth, there's a good chance I don't care. I don't mind that. becomes a matter of replayability, though. But it may not matter if the story's good. Now, this game has no story, but it also doesn't look like it has some kick-ass perfect strategy. It has things that I think have better advantages in terms of, I went into this in the wrap-up, but in terms of these pledges, it has certain ones of these that I think will generally produce more points. Almost assuredly produce more points. But you still have to figure out how to get to them, how to control them, and how to obtain those points. And then the other ones become sort of a booby prize for the remaining players, where maybe they won't score as much off of them, but it becomes not worth the effort to try to take one of the more valuable ones away from your opponent. Anyhow, I really do think that this works out well as this sort of cerebral, sitting around the table, trying to crush your opponent, you know, with these clever moves type of game. With enough luck and enough risk management thrown in, that you can never be sure that your plans are going to really work. Somebody may throw a ban just where you need to be able to act. And you can't then, you know, it's that simple. So I guess my biggest hit on the game, my biggest reason that I will say that I probably don't like it, is this feeling that I can certainly do the calculations, but a great difficulty in doing so. It's right in that there's a range of games that I just say, I should be able to. Now, this one's a little bit lesser than some of them, in the sense that it's not just I should be able to do it, it's I know I'm able to do it. And it's just, how annoying would that be to be sitting at the table with everybody doing that? Either way. Either doing it during the other person's turn or during their own turn, creating more downtime. Because if you forget your strategy, as I did many times taking my breaks, and that's in part because there is no story there. You can't have really... I can't remember a strategy without a storyline. So that's another factor on me for it. Even though I'm willing to buy into, gee, this abstract game, I'm not willing to buy into what the effect of it is on me. It's not simple enough to be an abstract in terms of the thought that I have to keep in my head. The things I have to balance up there. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the two-player, though, again, because, you know, probably very few people try to play this two-player. It says it's a 3- or 4-player game, but I think it shines the best as a two-player game, actually. That complexity gets lowered down to the level where I can handle the thinking a little bit easier, where I'm never going to really suffer serious AP. Simpler than chess. More complex than Go. Yeah, I know. Go is a matter of patterns for me. I'm not necessarily good at Go, but it's very easy to see, oh, you went there, I have to do something, and just know what I have to do, at least in general. In chess, you move someplace, and maybe it's because I just haven't played enough of it, I don't know what I have to do. I might realize what you're threatening, but then I have to start actually looking at all of the decision tree to figure out what the hell's going on. I don't do that kind of processing at all in Go, except when I get caught in the corner. And getting mugged in the corner is very much like playing a game of chess to me. Alright, anyway, I think this one's an interesting one that a lot of people might like that probably aren't aware of it. If you're... Unfortunately, the two people who have done videos, Tom Vasel, who mainly, you know, his own liking of games is mainly more what are called thematic games over at BGG. I think AT is better suited for him, but he really wants at least some level of theme to a game. Well, more than theme, but of connection to the theme of the game. In this one, there's very little connection, and there's a lot of holes you can shoot into the attempts at connecting it. You know, what's up with those bases? Why is a level 3 base useless unless, you know, the 1s and 2s are all evenly matched? What's going on with that? I'm sure you can dance around and find a meaning, but whatever. That's the kind of argument he put against it. But, you know, you assume a lot of his players are going to be in favor of that kind of, or a lot of his viewers are going to be in favor of that kind of, the kind of play that he likes. And a lot of my viewers are going to be in favor of an even richer story of the wargaming tradition. However, I just don't want to diss this game completely, because even if it's not really my thing, actually as an abstract, it comes close. It comes close. It's just a little too much effort, and I'm pretty sure even just playing one power or one player in a 4-player game sitting there at the table, it's going to be too much. Maybe 3-player will work for me, but 2-player was easy enough that it actually really worked well for me, and you might have to tweak it a little bit, double up the counter mix, but it works fine in 2. Alright, up it goes.